me to start recording. Okay, so we are all ready to start. So thank you all for joining us on resume writing, strategies for tailoring your resume. For any of you who were on our call last week, thank you so much for coming back this week. I think it's really great to see you go from that beginning workshop all the way to more specifically tailoring that resume to each job and internship you apply for. My name is Liz Giordano. I'm one of the program managers in the office, and I'm joined by
Rashonda Jenkins, and I'm also one of the program managers in the Career Services Office.
Great. So we're going to just go ahead and start. So the first thing I just wanted to remind everybody about is accessing Handshake. It's our career management platform. It's very important for you to utilize when you're looking for those internships and full-time positions, even some part-time around there as well. But we just wanted to remind you how to find that tool. So go under the little settings wheel under Earning Tools on that homepage, add Handshake if you haven't already, and that way you can easily access that and log in with your earning credentials. This is a great place to go for a few things, right? Looking for, again, those jobs and internships, events like the one we're hosting today, and even getting your resume uploaded so we can review it for you to give you some tools and tips on how to make it better. So we're going to move on from that. And so again, today's topic is really focusing on how to tailor your resume to, again, specific job descriptions. So first and foremost, you should all have a formatted resume that you've created, a general document that you've started in your process of that resume writing journey, I'll say. And so really thinking about the next steps. So every time you look up a job description, again, for either a full-time job or an internship, you want to review that job description. Really, what is the company seeking? What are the qualifications, the responsibilities? What are the skills that they're looking for? So that's the first thing you're going to do. And then start to compare your resume that you have currently and identify those relevant skills. Sometimes you have the same thing that you may be doing in that job or internship. The wording may just be a little different. And so we're going to talk about why that's important to match documents. And again, think about what are the most relevant experiences, skills, and qualifications that you have that really fit the role that is what you found to apply for. Another thing you can do is, and we'll talk more about this section later on, but to change that objective statement or your professional summary that's at the top of the resume to match that specific position that you're applying for. That can, again, really give a little bit more context to what the resume is, what the purpose of the resume is, as well as what specific skills you possess that are matching that position. So here's a few things, again, to understand. We have really thinking about, okay, understanding the employer, what's their industry, what are their wants and needs of just the department as well as the organization itself. So for example, an airline may be different than an airport, right? Their needs are going to be a little bit different. Even if it may be a similar position, you may have different variables to consider. Really knowing those job qualifications required for the position. You may not know every single thing listed, but we do want you to think about a majority of things. 60% or more of those qualifications should be matched by your past experience and skills, including your education. And then highlight those significant keywords that are related to the skills that you possess, as well as keywords you can use on your resume to tailor it to that position. And then mirroring the company's priorities when you're organizing your content. If the first thing on their list is the skills, the Tableau and PQL and all those other ones, then you should definitely include that, right? And so that's something that you can think about when you're, again, looking at the job description. And another thing you want to think about too is what are your relevant skills as well. So relaying those skills for the job. So focus on, again, those hard or technical skills like computer software, foreign languages, graphic design, other computer hardware tools that you may need to know. And also include your certifications and licenses, whatever those may be, again, relevant to each position. For some students, the flight hours are going to, and ratings will be important. Others, it is going to be those computer technical skills that you've developed through classwork and internship. Others of you may have certifications more on the maintenance side, or you may have really pertinent foreign languages that can benefit you in that job search as well.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about categorizing your hard skills and why it's so important. When an employer looks at your resume, if you have your skills laid out in a way that's super defined, it's going to help highlight those specific skills. And we just gave you all some examples of a way that you can do that. And it's not to say you have to necessarily use these specific categories. Of course, you want to use categories that apply to your major area. So you can break that up into software. So if you are a student who is taking on an engineering degree, you can lay that out. So the different software that you're familiar with and that you mastered. Also, technical skills, as Liz stated, those are super important. So again, depending upon your degree area, you're able to list those specific technical skills. You also have those computer skills. If you have marketing background, that could be something you add. And also languages are super important. It just makes you more versatile. It makes you a highly valued asset to that specific company. All right, so let's talk about experiences. There are a variety of experiences that you can include on your resume. So we're going to discuss some of those and the importance of having them. First, that one that you may see up top is project experience. And a lot of times students don't know that that is a very highly, I would say, sought after part of your resume, especially while you're an undergrad or graduate student. You definitely want to highlight that area because it shows how you're applying the knowledge that you learn in your courses. So if you don't have this specific area, you definitely want to include it. I know sometimes as a freshman student, you may not have as much project experience, but definitely getting into like that sophomore year and post-sophomore year, you'll definitely have some experiences where you work on projects. In that specific section, you want to have a project title. All right, you also want to include how many team members you work with, because what does that show? Teamwork. It shows collaboration, that you can work with others. So that is a great skill to include. And you also want to just give a brief description of what you accomplished. You can talk about some of the skills that you utilize within that project, but project experience is great to add. Internship experience. So if you haven't had an internship, again, that's where you want to definitely include projects, but internship is going to demonstrate your hands-on experience in that specific major program area. And I would say that even if it is not a requirement or it's not mandatory for your specific degree, you still want to get hands-on experience because it does make you a more marketable candidate. All right, and it allows you, again, to enhance the skills that you're learning in the classroom and just show how you're applying those in the workplace. Work experience is always good. And of course, as you matriculate throughout your college career, you may have more relevant experiences with your work experience, but you still want to include what you have as of now. And we'll show you guys how to really include some of those good descriptions of how to really divvy up that specific work experience you may have. Leadership is another great area. So if you are actively involved in any clubs or organizations, anything that you're affiliated with, you definitely want to show that active involvement because that's where you're able to look a little bit deeper into what soft skills you possess. So no, we may not necessarily include flexibility, adaptability, creativity. You may not put those specific words on your resume, but when you define different organizations that you're a part of, and if you obtained leadership, so if you are a president, if you are the treasurer, if you are the secretary, any type of those positions are really good to include because it shows that you have that leadership capability. A few more of different sections that you want to include in your resume that really help you tailor that and show some of those different experiences that you've obtained. Achievements. So anytime you can show your honors and awards, that can include scholarships. If you got most outstanding, even if you're in a sport, player of the year, anything that shows that you have achieved GPA. So you want to include your GPA. If you've obtained Dean's List, if you graduate cum laude, those are different achievements you want to have on that resume. Again, those activities and involvement, again, an area to really enhance and define your skills. And then an optional portion that you may want to include are your relevant courses. So relevant courses are those courses that show that you've applied knowledge in your specific classes. And it also gives that recruiter a snapshot of the types of skills that you developed as a student. So that could also be an area that you include right in your education section. Right below that, you want to include those relevant courses as well. All right, transferable skills. So this area, again, may not necessarily be on your resume, but those experiences that we just discussed and those accomplishments, that is where you're able to really hone in on transferable skills. Because if you've had tech writing, all right, then you can list that as a written communication. You're going to be able to speak to that experience and show how you've had written communication. It'll also highlight your potential to be a great asset to the company organization. And we just gave you guys some examples of those transferable skills that you can use, all right, with different experiences that you list. So you may not necessarily have all of those different technical or hard skills that they're looking for, right? But if you have different experiences and involvement that show transferable skills, you definitely want to include those on your resume. Action verbs. So this is one of those things, I still use this to this day, action verbs to really help me describe some of the experiences that I've done. No matter what that work experience might be, you can definitely make it sound professional, all right, and attest to the different things that you have accomplished and achieved in a variety of positions. So use of strong action verbs are really going to help diversify your language. So you don't want to keep including like responsible for X, responsible for Y. You want to make sure that you have a good variety. And these are just some of those examples that we've included here. So if you've analyzed, if you've collaborated, if you've coordinated, those are things that you can include on your resume to start off that statement to really paint a clear picture of what you have done. And we'll actually send this action verb list out because it is extremely helpful, again, especially if you're struggling with including the different descriptions of what you've done. So we'll make sure we send that out to all of our attendees today. All right, and then that objective and professional summary. So with this, I would say it is not a mandatory for the area that you have to include in your resume, but it can be helpful if you have a specific position that you are applying for. So the main things that we want to cover here is that it is going to be kind of that introductory statement, but it should be short, clear, and precise. So when you have one that's too chunky and it's like 8 lines long, the employer may not take the time to read that, all right, because they generally take about less than 10 seconds to take a look at your resume to see if they want to dive in a little bit deeper. So when they first look at that resume, again, it needs to be short and sweet. So we just gave you all a few examples here of how you can include a clear objective. And even the one that's not listed here, just to start it out as to obtain a position as, you list the position with XYZ employers. So it can be that simple just to state that you're being intentional with your resume for a specific position. So I'll read one of these: objective, energetic and positive communication student seeking an internship to apply my specialized knowledge of public relations at Amazon. So that's very short and to the point. You know what they're seeking, and they even threw in a couple of those skills that they obtained that they can apply to the workplace. All right, now Liz is going to go over a few examples to help you guys look at a little bit deeper about those job descriptions.
Yes, thank you very much. So one thing we really want to focus on, again, is the job description. For some companies, they're going to have very detailed job description, a nice bulleted list of skills that they want the person to be able to do, or again, maybe they're things that you're going to be doing at the internship or the full-time position. So we have an example here from as a flight coordinator at Air Journey. So for some of you interested in more of the administrative operational side of aviation, this might be a good position for you. It's on Handshake now, but we wanted to use this because, again, It's a really important thing to think about as you're reviewing each job description. So this is just the initial paragraph to explain a little more about what the flight coordinator is, as well as who is Air Journey, right? So that's going to give you some guidance on what should you include, what's important, what are some keywords they're using, as well as who should you be, what are you thinking about as you're developing this. Now, for some of you, you might be thinking, why do I have to do a tailored resume for every single position, all my applications? I have this resume, shouldn't it work? We'll get into this a little later, but a lot of companies use software that tracks different applicants. So it's pretty much scanning documents to the job description. And if you don't have a high enough match rate, more than likely you wouldn't get through the system. So that's why we want you to really focus on tailoring your resume. I'll give you an example for me before we dive into this a little deeper. When I was applying for jobs in career services, since I already worked in the field, I would go in, look at the job description, and I would use the bullet points that they did, because if I did it, I used it. And I got a lot of interviews, right? I had to get through the interview process to get the position, but I was able to get to that interview step because of that. And so this is why we want you to do this, because we want you to get the interview. We know how qualified our students are, and this is the best way to get you in that interview process. Now it's up to you as well to get the interview and to pass it, right? And to get the job. But these are the tools we want you to focus on as you're going through the application process. So when we look at the Air Journey, go back real quick, sorry. So when we look at this first part of the Air Journey example, again, you can see what are they looking for, right? Someone who's highly motivated, organized, team-oriented, first-class customer service and care. So what do you want to show on your resume, right? Motivated, well, you're motivated to apply for the position. That's going to show them that. Organized, if your resume is well formatted and organized, that'll show them that skill. A team-oriented individual, again, showing those projects, other jobs you've had that are team-oriented, and also showing that you've had customer service, whether it's off-campus job, on-campus job, internship, showing them that. Seasoned in private aviation industry. So maybe you want to have your private for this one, right? Private's pilot. Become a flight support specialist, deliver true experience for each flight. So maybe you have a class that shows that you've done something there. Weather tracking, flight following, flight crew, FBO, preparing itinerary. So you see there's a few things they're talking about. So again, have you had a class about flight operations? Have you done in your internship any of these? There's words you can start to use. So they say itineraries instead of flight plan. Well, they do say flight plan, right? So they say itineraries and flight plan. So when you're looking at your bullet points, if you've done something similar, you want to start to match the word choices that the company is using. So we'll go to the next slide, because again, they had a little long of a list, which is good. So some companies will see responsibilities. It's like a short little paragraph. We want you to do this, this, this. And we're like, oh, that's not helpful, right? It's just a little bit of information. They give us a nice long bulleted list of all the things that you're going to do in the position, right? So one thing I really want you to be mindful of, and this is more job search related, if you only hit on about half or 2/3 of this list, still apply, right? You want, unless it's like the top most important thing, like they're really specific, like you must be able to do this and you can't, that might be the one thing you decide not to. But a lot of people have that stop up, like I'm not fully qualified, I can't apply. Well, if you're mostly qualified, you should still apply. So think about all the different things they're asking you to do on this list. So what do we see in the first word of each bullet point? Action verb, right? So you highlight all those action verbs, and what Shonda was saying before is use variation, right? We don't want to use the same one. And we really don't even want to use responsible for at all in a bullet point, because it's not an action verb. And that just means that's on your job description. It doesn't mean you actually did the thing, right? So we want to see, what did you actually do? What were your duties, your responsibilities? So if you've coordinated something in the past, use that verb, right? If you have arranged something and maybe you're not using that verb right now, but you know you have done that before, you change it. And so you're really thinking, what are the words they're using? What are words I'm using on my job description or my resume that might be a little different, but it's the same meaning essentially. So one I really love to use is the combination between like client, guest, customer. They're all the same, right? So this one, it said client. I saw that a minute ago. So if you had a customer service position and you said to ensure positive customer experience, change it to client, right? Change it to guest, whatever word they're using. Okay. If you've done something with expenditures and billing, that's the words they're using. Instead of saying finances, you change that, right? As treasurer, you talk about expenditures, you talk about billing, you talk about contracts, right? So you're thinking, what are these words that this company is using? And you're going to take your time to pull out those key terms. One good tip you can always do is like a word cloud. There's websites for that, and it'll populate what is the word they use the most. I think ensure is on here like 6 times, right? So that might be number one. So it's really focusing hard on those things, pulling out those key terms that are most important. Then we have one last slide for this example. And again, here's the big kicker, right? Experience in private aviation, but they want your private pilot or IFR rating. If you have those, where should they be? Under a rating section on your resume, right? It asks you about Microsoft Office, Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Put those on there. I always mention the Excel thing. If you really don't know how to use it, don't put it, because unless you can do more than just putting the sum in, like me, I'm never putting that on my, but just remember that. Okay. And then they have other things under interpersonal skills. So that's like transferable. Team player was big. They mentioned that more than once. Leadership skills. So think about all your activities that you're a part of. Please put those on there. Please put some bullet points as well. Showing initiative, making decisions, organization, attention to detail. So that's a big one. So make sure you're reviewing all your documents before you send them so that you're not having any spelling errors, because that's a big thing for them. Don't send your resume that you wrote for United to Air Journey, because they're going to be mad, right? So really give yourself that time, okay? And so that's really the thing. That was just the job description for that position. You take your time, you read it over, you review all the information. You can make your resume for that. Once it's done and you feel good about it, then you could submit your application. And that's the thing. It does take some time. And as you see, we have another example, right? It does take time to review the job description and to really be detailed with it. Once you're in your career a little more, if you're doing the same job, so let's say you're aerospace engineer one, and then you're going to another company, you're aerospace engineer again, those skills may be very similar. So in the next job after this first one, you may be able to do what I do with those bullet points and using what the employer says, and it may get a little easier for you. But we really do recommend this step. This extra step in your job search will give you a lot more outcomes in the after time, the last part. If it's for Expo, that general one's going to be just fine. But for those applications, we want them to be more specific. Okay, so here's another one, an internship at Arthrex Inc. I think I said that right. So again, global medical device company, leader in new product development and medical education orthopedics. Looking for someone who has a degree in safety. We have that. It's not, more of an internship for this, so you don't have to be done with your degree yet. We'll perform safety evaluations, new and existing equipment, right? So maybe you've done that in class, right? Maybe you've developed a safety evaluation. So you'd write, put that on there. Update training presentations, as well as presenting training information to other staff, right? So maybe you don't have, you never done a training presentation, but you've done presentations in class before. So again, you can show that skill, work within the requirements of their tasks, deliver results, and communicate issues in a timely and accurate manner. Yeah, so this one's, again, not giving us too much, a little bit of information, but I think the next slide will have us have a little bit more for us. So yeah, here we go. And again, internships may be a little bit less detailed than the full-time, and that's something to remember as well. But again, that safety evaluation is a big one, right? And you can say, I can do that, right? I've learned that in class. There's this one class, and this is the project we did, and you can explain that. Assisted industrial hygiene sampling and exposure monitoring projects. So again, think about what you've done in class for this one. Administrative support. So again, that might be a customer service job that you've done. Management of change approvals, installation qualification approvals. And you can always think, what do I know about those two things? What are they? What's the software that I may need to use, right? And so that's something you can review as well. So really not giving us too much on this one, but make sure you really hit on those things. And then again, as long as you're getting a degree in safety, occupational safety, aerospace and occupational safety, is that it? There's so many safeties I'm forgetting, but again, make sure you really are, in the right area. Again, detail oriented, that's a big one that comes up. Science and math skills, and it just says machine tools, equipment, PC. Okay, familiar with Microsoft Outlook, PowerPoint, Word, Excel. Again, that should be under your skills section. A fax, a scanner, those are things you can easily learn. Some of you may not know what a fax machine is. And you can talk to us about it too, because we're a little older, so we've used them before, but it's really just putting in a phone number to another fax machine and scanning your document to that person. So again, just showing that you can use a computer. Hopefully with this internship, you're applying through the computer, so they'll know at least you can navigate the application on the PC. So those are the main examples. If you have any questions for us regarding, other ways to kind of develop your skills on tailoring, you can ask once we have a few more slides. I wanted to bring up a tool called JobScan. And really what it is, and again, I mentioned this a little earlier, is all these big companies, especially the really big companies, they use something called applicant tracking software, or ATS. Really what this is in the software, the company has uploaded all of their jobs that are open. All the descriptions are in there based on the requisition numbers, the internships are there as well. And so when you apply for that position, instead of it just going directly to a hiring manager, a human person, it's going into a computer system. And that computer system is reviewing your resume or your cover letter or both, whichever, if you have both, they're reviewing that based on the job description. So let's say you're the most qualified candidate, you can do everything on the list, but you have really very little to no matching words, keywords, anything. You're likely not going to get through the ATS system. If you do end up doing what we've talked about, reading over the descriptions, matching your keywords, using those verbs, then you should have a higher rate match. Usually it's about 80% or more. Some companies will do like 70s, and that's okay. And that way, then you get to a person. Some companies, it's like once you're through that system, you get an interview automatically. Others, it's more, okay, we've removed all the people who don't match enough, and now we're going to review them ourselves to determine who we want to bring on. And so that's something that you can be really mindful about. So JobScan is a website you can go on to do this exact thing. So you can put the job description in on one side, and then you'll copy paste your resume / cover letter on the other, and it'll give you a match rate. Now you only get a certain amount of free scans, I think it's about 10, before they charge you money. We don't want you to pay for this, it's not something we're suggesting, but it's something to be mindful of as a tool while you're learning how to be better at targeting and tailoring that document to the job description. So again, a really good thing, it gives you some pointers on, okay, maybe you need to edit this part. It looks like some of your headings need to be adjusted, or you can add some more skills, or your formatting is off a little bit, or whatever it is. Again, some of it you may not see because of the paywall that they have, unfortunately. I wish it was a tool that we could let you use, but it's a little pricey for what all of the offices for career services can handle right now, but it's very important. At least you can just use it as a tool for free. And so that's something we just want you to be mindful of as you're moving forward. So that's just something I wanted to bring up.
And Liz, I'll let you cover this one too, since you're working with Ego Elevate.
Sure, of course. So Eagle Elevate was developed to help students to develop career competencies through the NACE organization, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. So they survey employers every year on what are the top competencies they want candidates to be able to do. And these are usually transferable skills. So these are the top 8 that they have chosen or said are the most important. And so Eagle Elevate was designed to help you learn those competencies and to develop those skills. So we are working on a Canvas course that should go live probably later this year, closer to fall semester. And so again, it's ways that you can learn these skills. There's also other events on campus that are involved in this. So if you go to an equity and inclusion, diversity event, that might count for that competency for Eagle Elevate. If you're a leader on campus, you do teamwork in class all the time, right? And so it's just a way for you to really understand what are the things I'm doing that relate to each of these competencies.
Thank you, Liz. We wanted to share with you all our spring career services events calendar, if you have not seen it, but it lists the different events that we'll be hosting. So our lunch and learns are on the left-hand side. They all take place between 12:30 to 1:30. We also have career ready workshops, which are our evening sessions. So for example, today we're hosting a virtual session, and that will also take place. So pretty much the same type of content, just in person. We may have that hands-on activity, but that'll be taking place later on this evening at 5:30 if you would like to attend. And we also just have our other career events that are available. So if you all are looking for attire for the expo that's coming up on March 23rd, we have our JCPenney Suit Up event, and that will be taking place on next Sunday, February 26th. So we have information regarding that. And then also at the top, you can scan that QR code to see like all the different events that we host. And at the bottom, it just gives you, if you need to request accommodations for the expo, which I'll be going over a little bit more on the next slide, we also have that available to assist as well. So regarding our Industry Career Expo, we currently have, I believe, 89 companies that are registered, which is amazing for spring. It will be a class day. So most of the time it is a no class for fall, but there will be class, but you can find time in between to make sure that you come and attend to speak with some employers and network. It's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. with general admission starting at 9:30. And all you'll need to do is bring your Eagle card and then be professionally dressed. We will be starting our Fast Pass. For those of you who have attended Expo before, we do have a Fast Pass pickup where you're able to come. It'll be right outside of our office, Suite 313 is the Student Union, where you can come grab your Fast Pass, which means that you have easy access to get into the expo. So you won't have to wait in a long line, but literally you show up and you're able to go directly into the event. And that will begin next Friday, February 24th, and literally will be right outside. And you're able to just bring your Eagle ID and grab your Fast Pass. And that pretty much concludes our session for today. And we would like to know if anyone has questions, you can unmute, or if you want to place it in the chat box.
My name is Green, and I have a question.
Okay.
Because when we when we post the resume on a Handshake, we need the time to approve it. So I just want to know that normally how long for the pending process, and in case when it is approved, and will the resume go directly to the company, or I have to send my resume to the company by myself on the external website or something? I want to know about that. I want
Yeah,
to know the process. Yeah.
sure. So Handshake, it really depends on the company. So some of them have you apply through Handshake specifically. Others will have an external link that you'll click on once you look at the job description on there. So it does depend on that. As for the pending document process in Handshake for resumes, it really does depend on your program manager and the time of year. So we try to do a turnaround usually like 48 hours, I think. But for some of us, because we just are very busy and we do other things in the office, it may take a little longer, a couple of weeks, depending. We do have our career peers in the front as well who help us with resume reviews. So again, it does vary based on your degree program. We do recommend, I believe it's in the bottom there, careers@era.edu, or there's a DB career, like a front desk. We have our main email address. If you really need something approved more expeditiously, like speedy, because you've applied to something and you want to make sure it gets approved before then, just email that email address. I know it can be frustrating at times, but we do try to keep up with it as much as we can. But again, for some departments on campus, there's just a lot more students than others. And so it sometimes can back up. But if it's attached to an application and you really want to make sure it gets approved before that happens, then just email, or if you know your program manager already, just email them as well. And so that's really my advice. So I know for myself, I don't get as many resumes as other majors. So I may be on top of those students a little bit faster. But we have, for example, like aerospace engineering gets like 60, 70 every couple weeks. And so she gets really busy with that. So it can take a little more time for that.
So you mean that after I got approved, so I can send it to the external?
Yes, once it's approved, you can use that for applications if you'd like. Again, we're talking today more about tailoring it to each position. So you want to, if you want it to be looked at based on a certain job, you can email your program manager or stop by. I know I'm working with the business students right now. I know we've worked together before as well. So you can always email me and say, hey, can you review this for me based on this job description, get some feedback, and then you'll be able to apply. And that's same for any student, whoever your program manager is. If you want them to look at it first, that's definitely an option. But yes, once it's approved, if it's already attached to an application through Handshake, it should go to that employer based on the Handshake application. If they were a company that requested you to apply externally, then you need to apply on their website as well because they've requested that. So there are some things there, but yes, if it's approved, you can use it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other questions? Great questions, Ewan.
What should and shouldn't be included in a project experience section? So that's a good question, Sean. Let me see, what's your major? Let me see. Your meteorology. Okay, so first and foremost, you can think about, and Shonda can answer a little more too, because that's her degree program that she helps with, but really think about for your projects you've done based on the job or internship you're applying for, that can help you determine what's supposed to be in that section for that specific company. And you can determine it that way based on skills that you've developed in that project and what they're looking for. But I'll turn it over to Shonda for more.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I know a lot of times you may have different research experiences as well. So I didn't include that one, but that would have been a good one. So if you have any research that you've done, I know with some meteorology students, they've worked with different telescopes. So they include, if they were working with another group member, whether it was individual, they'll just kind of give a briefing. So that title for a project, which should be a little engaging to make the reader want to, know a little bit more about what it is. And including the different, I would say program software, whatever it is you're using with your specific major, telescopes, for example, if you've done something with that, it's just really good to include. So if not projects, but if you've done research, that could be another avenue for you to speak to the knowledge you're gaining, and then how are you, utilizing that knowledge in the classroom. Hope we answered that.
Yeah, and I will say too, for other things, don't necessarily just put like the course name numbers, like the letters and numbers, because not all companies will know what that specific class was. So sorry, my watch. And so put the actual class name, or like Shonda said, the actual project or research lab name, so they know more specifically, like not meteorology 101, but
Right.
telescope something, hurricanes 101, right? Something like that, more specific information. So good question.
Yes.
Yeah, any other questions? We have a little more time.
All right, if there are no other questions, we thank you all for joining us today. We hope you found some useful information that you all will apply to your resume. And again, if you have completed it and you need feedback, you can upload it on Handshake. Or again, if you need it with a little bit more urgency, please reach out to your program manager if you know who that is, or you can also contact us at the careerservices.era.edu. But here's some ways that you can stay connected. We post a lot of our positions on Twitter. We've also got Instagram where we show a lot of upcoming events, even LinkedIn. So these are some ways that you can connect with us. And we thank you all again for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording.